entrepreneurship where you would be able to relate to your business and exercise it in such a way for you to be better in your performance, right? So there are few concepts that you need to be clarify before you even set up a business. So those are the kind of concepts that I'm going to talk about. Don't take them as theories, but much more it is a very, very practical way of looking at the entrepreneurship in your day-to-day life. So I hope that is the best way. So that is why I have, my theme is entrepreneurial way, sharpening your entrepreneurial in you. Because all of you are having entrepreneur mindset, but now is the time to sharpen. For that we need little bit of frameworks and little bit of ideas or way we look at things. I attended last part of Mr. Deepal Suryarachi. What he said is very correct. So you need to have very clarity on what you are supposed to be doing in that context, right? So moving further, I like to talk about where are we now, because without talking about now, we can't talk about what we're supposed to be doing now. So I would like to draw your attention to evolution of entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka, not in a very chronological manner, the way I see it, right? Good old days, actually I can remember, good old days when I was small, we saw some entrepreneurships, we saw some manufacturing companies, but that was 1960s. But over time we saw one after the other, they are diminishing, they are extinct, right? So therefore we were thinking what is happening there. So slowly what has happened was traders took over the demands of the customer. Traders took over demands of the customer. Manufacturing was gradually is diminishing. Why? How it has happened is traders in the I call it a PETA effect. I like that word PETA effect. I coined that word PETA effect because people in PETA, I don't want to call them entrepreneurs, but I want to call them traders. The people in PETA, they found cheaper sourcing countries. What are the two countries? China and India. So they imported things and they had a huge margin, and with that margin, and they also, I shouldn't say this, but they also supported or they were aligned, they are friends of some of the politicians. So you understand, so they get a better advantage and therefore they had a competitive advantage in that context and got the products to us at a cheaper cost, right? Now good example today, we are seeing how much is a road bike? 339,000 rupees, but you can buy 120,000 rupees imported bike. Now Roda is locally. So you understand what I'm trying to say. So that has happened in the past also. So gradually I saw the extinction of our own entrepreneurship there. So that's the one side of the story. So then also looking at the entrepreneurship today, I like to draw your attention to a little bit of statistics where we are in Sri Lankan companies, 90% of the companies are on SMEs, right? Entrepreneurs, SMEs, small, medium enterprises. Now out of them, this is the problem. That doesn't matter. I think that's more the better. But the problem is their contribution to our GDP, gross domestic product, is about 52%. This is according to the Ministry of Industry's statistics. That is not good enough. Why? The successful economies, not necessarily all the Western countries, in successful economies, GDP contribution by SMEs are beyond 90%, sometimes even 99%. Now this is the problem we have in Sri Lanka. Because of that, we have to depend on these politicians to take decisions. If our entrepreneurship took over, well, if we are bringing dollars to the country better, if we are producing better, if we are catering to the local requirements, then what happens is, I think we are much going to be economically sound, therefore. Then also, our contribution today from entrepreneur is, SME is about 40, 50, less than 50%. So today we are having millions of people who are wanting the job. As at today people have lost their jobs. So this is a kind of a very serious reality of our life. So that aspect need to be looked into. So, so therefore we have to seriously think about as individuals, how best as you all, how individuals as you, how best that you can create employment and how best that you can cater to Sri Lankan economy either as an exporter or as a local provider of products and services to the market. I like Professor Jayewardenepura of Morutu University. He said a very interesting comment. He said, my university student doesn't have any problem of finding jobs. So they have a very strong name, so they don't have a problem of finding jobs as students. But today what I want is my students to create employments to others. So here, ladies and gentlemen, all of you are intending or already creating employment for others in that context. So it is highly commendable, and I think that's what the way should be in that context. So please take some of the ideas, not all, take 3 points that I have been talking about in this presentation, and if these 3 are relevant to you, if you can execute in your respective businesses, that is more than enough. Okay, let's move on. So what I actually thought of is first talk about how am I performing as an entrepreneur in my kind of thing. So you will hear from an entrepreneur who had been successful, who had peaks and valleys kind of a thing. Because entrepreneurship is all about that, having peaks and valleys in life, right? Till you extend from the industry, there are peaks and valleys. So I am happy to say I have started 4 businesses, and then some are very successful, some are not so successful. So don't take me as a person who come here to talk about my success. No, I want you to see me as a person who have gone through this roller coaster journey as an entrepreneur in life. In that journey, I had an opportunity to learn management. I had an opportunity to complete my PhD, so that has helped me to contribute. If I had this knowledge much earlier, you wouldn't have seen me here, right? Maybe I am somewhere else in another country doing extremely well in that way. You understand? So that is why I want to draw your attention to certain very few basic stuff that each entrepreneur should be having in their entrepreneurial life. So those are the few points I wanted to establish you. If I had this knowledge earlier, as I told you, I would have been better, right? Now I want you to take that into your system and make a better performance in that context. So I started MBL, RCB, then also I produced some of the best pineapples in the country for exports, right? I used the drip irrigated mechanism. And so while doing so, it's a multiple activities in that sense. And then also recently I started SLSME because I thought I have gone through peaks and valleys, so I wanted to share that knowledge for others to not to make the same mistakes and to come out to avoid the kind of mistakes that I have done and to do better and contribute to the Sri Lankan economy. So that's what I am doing right now, right? So I'll start my career in that context is starting from MBL. So I had the opportunity to do postgraduate studies in England. For that actually I went to Saudi and worked 2 years to make dollars. With that dollars only I went to England, and in there I had been working there and learning, studying and all that. So all kind of mundane stuff we have done. I had been a taxi driver, I had been a pizza delivery person, all kinds of things I have done in the London chef and all that. So all being done. So then when I came back to Sri Lanka, what I saw there's an interesting company, leading business research company. So I joined the company as a senior executive, right? So within 6 months, because of my performance, they made me project director, right? Then I'm making a name for myself. So I was then looking ahead. Then I saw 2 people, I think Mr. Suraj knows them, right? They are about the same age. So it will take me 20 years for me to come to the top. But I am a very hot-blooded youth, you understand? So I don't want to wait that long. So that is the kind of entrepreneurial mind that we have. We are very dynamic, assertive, headstrong, that kind. So you understand what I'm trying to say? I didn't want to wait that long, so I pulled out. I started a company on my own, right? So that was before this, right? So that company, I can remember, the first client didn't even pay me. He made use of my availability, but he didn't even pay me. Because he thought that I'm vulnerable there. But I learned a lot. So gradually, then I'm going to take you through, now this is where I'm going to introduce a very interesting framework. This framework is very useful. You all would have gone, or you are going through this framework. That is I call existence, survival, control, takeoff, partnership. Existence is we are trying to stand. Survival means we are trying to walk a little bit, right? Control and takeoff is we are running, right? Then we go into takeoff is running actually, and partnership is very important. So now, so the company that I started, is a research company. So when you say research company, it's only to myself and my wife. You understand? So we go to meet the client, get the project, and design the questionnaire, go to the field in the morning, having 2 lunch packets being wrapped out, and collect the data, and come home in the night, enter the data, and run it for 4 weeks, and finally submit the report. So that's what we were doing for several months. So because our involvement, quality of the report is very good, and our speed is there because we two are the only one who's doing everything. You understand? So we were gradually picking up a momentum, what we call tracking, right? So our tracking is happening. So then we had to hire a few more people in then and there, and then we had to move to a new place. That is where we had a serious problem. What is the problem? Cash flow. Business is there, but we don't have cash flow to manage the financial requirements. So we mortgage the house. Right now, house is also mortgaged, so we have taken a hell of risk. Right, we need to take risk because entrepreneur is a risk taker. Right, so we took that risk and all that, and when we expanded a bit, but still we have a cash flow issue. So therefore, we have missed couple of mortgage payments also. Now we are in a very critical thing. In that process, can you imagine? These are the kind of things that happen. So now we are here in control, and we are in the control stage. We have been inquired by a British company whom I knew earlier, and then they wanted to move into a partnership, right? So I went into a partnership, right? So in that partnership, rest is history. Within 4 years, we moved into a 4-storied building. We were number 1 in qualitative research. You understand? Hundreds of staff. I am in a 4th floor room. Good accountant I had, and a very good research team, and a very good field team, and all that all over the country. Can you imagine? Exponential growth, right? So that's where. So in my case, even though this is the order, after control, I went into partnership. Then only I took off in my first company. Then I got bored. Why? Because I don't have enough challenges. In the morning, I have only 1 hour's job because talk to some critical issues, sign a couple of checks here and there, then I didn't have anything to do. Then I decided, no, this is not going to for me. So I packed at that time, sorry, I forgot to tell you, this company I partnered, they disposed that company to American company, and then that American company gave me American stocks, Nasdaq shares. Can you imagine? So I'm proud to say now I was a Nasdaq shareholder. You get my, so likewise. So there are so many pluses and minuses were there. Then I disposed the company, went back to UK, and then then did some consultancy and upgraded my knowledge, did some studies and all that. Then again came back and then started the next company, RCB. Right? RCB is purely a local company. But I was successful once again. We dealt with almost all the companies, and Mr. Suryaji's company is also a client there. Even previous company also, Mr. Suryaji was a client, right? Then I went into this manner. Then I went into a partnership. That partnership didn't work out the way I wanted, right? While that is happening, also I cultivated pineapple, and it went into exports and so forth. So therefore, so many things are happening in that context in the business. So then I decided to exit from the company. right? Then that is where I realized, even though this partnership contract being drawn by a leading law firm in Colombo, this is a very important point for you all to take back home, that contract didn't have a proper exit clause. Can you imagine? That contract didn't have a proper exit clause. I had a tough time to get out from that. You understand? So these are the kind of learnings that we need to understand, right? So we can't say, we can't cry, we have made this mistake and all that. Why then think I managed to get out from it? Then university got to know about my availability. They invited me to join the full faculty. Then I joined the full faculty. After several years, I realized I contribute the same thing while being a visiting faculty. So that's what I did. Because I am an entrepreneur, I didn't want to stick myself to structure to that level. So now I am a visiting faculty, and while doing things like this, consulting SMEs, most of them are free of charge because I don't want to make money out of it, because what my dream is to contribute more entrepreneurs. Because in Sri Lanka, according to the Department of Census and Statistics, we have about 1.3 million MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises. Out of that, only 200 to 300 people are SMEs. In my calculation, we need 2 million, 10% of SMEs in this country for us to be financially successful, right? We have only 200 to 300,000. Now then again, now you have to be very careful here. What is the definition of SME? Central bank? 50 to 100, 750 million income earner is a SME. So don't undermine that. Earning 50 million is not easy. I don't know. I had a tough time working 50 million. I don't know. How about you all? Right? I had a tough time making 50 million. You understand? So according to the commercial banks, SME classification is 50 to 500 million. For their official purposes, they are using 50 to 500 million for their thing. So this is where the reality, right? Now, as I told you earlier, now then also I want to bring another concept here. Now, that's the one. Now today our country, we are going through a serious predicament. Our country is going through a serious predicament. Now, all of us need to go back to our survival, existence survival techniques rather than other things. Now this is what, because I am in several committees in Sri Lanka with very high profile people, where export development chairman and all these people are there. But what we are trying to say is, we need to now find a way to go back to existence and survival approach and downsize our operations and see how we can survive, because we need to manage our cash flow, working capital. You understand? So these are the kind of things that we... So now what I am trying to do today is, stemming from here, I will be discussing few ideas that entrepreneurs should know in their respective industries, and see if you adhere to these things, I think you are going to... chances of you are going to be survival is going to be high. I hope... Are you ready for that? Okay. Before that, we should know who an entrepreneur is. Entrepreneur is person who is, I had two different colors, but colors are not showing adequately. Organizing, person who can be organizing resources, assuming, and also who should be able to initiate business ventures. So all of you are in that category. Then also see whether you have these characteristics. Are you brave? Are you brave? Are you innovative? Are you independent? You are an independent thinker, you are a strong-willed person, headstrong, right? And also you are achievement-oriented. So you are not going to be succumbed to somebody else's whims and wishes. You want to do something on your own. If those things are there, then you will be very, very powerful in that context. Therefore then these very same qualities, also there is a negative. So these are the kind of negatives that... So if you are a very strong person, if you are an entrepreneur, you wanted to do things, just do it. We'll do it somehow. That kind of... That attitude has both plus and minus impacts. So what I am telling here, the just do it, persistent, passion, grow, focus and patchy. There are plus and minus situations. So therefore, you need to be mindful there in that context. Because if you are overtly impatient, chances of your failure is high. Because you want to make things happen faster, but you are not doing enough research or understanding properly about your products and services, so chances of you making a mistake is going to be high. So likewise, so sometimes the over passion, the problem with the entrepreneurs is that they are passionate and they are very close, the idea is very close to them, they don't share it with others. Very selfishly keeping it to themselves, so that won't work. But today, success is all about, in my case, success and failure both happen because of partnership. So I still promote, we need to go into partnerships. Share your knowledge, share your idea, and make the partnerships work. So identify the right partner. So I'm going to give you some places where you can identify your true partner, who your true partner is. I made some mistakes there, yes, I admit that. So that's what I'm trying to say. So therefore, then also overtly focusedness also. You are catering to one particular narrow market. You are making your company vulnerable. So be careful about that. So therefore, we need to learn little bit of management. So management is all about what? P is for planning, O is for organization, L is for leading, and also C is for controlling. But an entrepreneur, by and large, is a dominant leader in the context. So entrepreneur is by and large is a leader. He's driver, executor. So that aspect is there. Then in this context, we'll see who is an entrepreneur. So in my opinion, entrepreneur is a innovative business problem solver who enjoys creating value to customers. That's a one point. Who enjoys creating value to customers. And also who enjoys what? Challenges. Who enjoys challenges, who wanted to face challenges, who doesn't want to be very complacent, who enjoys challenges, then also who enjoys the money coming out of it. How are you? Aren't you coming out happy about the money coming out? So now I was dreaming to have a Suzuki Grand Vitara, I had the Grand Vitara, I was dreaming to have a Montero, I had a Montero, then I was I was dreaming to have a small sports car convertible, then I had it also. You understand what I'm trying to say? So it's not why I'm training you to just as a boast, but I wanted to motivate you, spend the money for what you like. But first and foremost, you have to make the money. You understand? So create that entrepreneurship and make the money in that context. So that's where, so they are creating value to the customer is a very important part for the entrepreneur. So after this slide, everything what I am talking about how to create value to the customer in your respective customer profile, how to create value in that context. That is very important. Rest is personal, but creating value is external. So creating value is the most important part. If you don't create value, you don't make money, so then you don't have money to spend. So that's how it is to be looked at. Moving further. Now question to you. Now, who is an entrepreneur? Entrepreneur is a problem solver. Am I right? Now my question to you is, what is the problem here? What is the problem here? Anyone? Huh? What is the problem here? How to get the? That's not the problem. No. Now you are nearly there, but you got the wrong context. What is the problem here? Huh? How to get there? How to get in? Now, so we need to. I take from Mr. Deepal Suryarachi very clearly. Clarity on the problem is very important in our entrepreneurship, right? You understand? So first and foremost, we need to have a clarity on the problem, then only the solution comes. Actually, Hal Gregerson is talking about catalytic questioning, isn't it? Right? So that's how it is to be looked at. So how to get there, right? So this is the means of this is the solution, means is the Trojan horse, right? So I think you need to get that sorted out well. Everybody, right? People at the back and people at the front. I'm talking to each one of you. Clarity on the business issue need to be sorted out, right? Now I am going to give another challenge in a different sort. Let's see what. Now, what is the innovative solution here? I'll explain a little bit. Amsterdam airport had a serious problem. What is the problem? Gents toilet maintenance cost is high. Now, what they want, we'll say 40%, but they want to bring down to 15%. Now I told you the problem. Now what is the innovative solution? Can anyone tell me what could be the innovative solution? If anyone knew this, don't say that because you spoil the spirit of here. But don't tell, if you knew the answer, right, don't tell it. But others, can you tell me the innovative solution for the problem? Earlier we talked about the problem. Now I want to know the innovative solution to the problem. Anyone? What could be the problem? Are you telling in front of there, don't urinate, don't spill while urinating? Is that good enough? Is that good enough? So what could be the solution here? So you need to do a little bit of research. You need to inquire, as Mr. Deepal is repeatedly telling, observe how people urinate. You understand? Now, I don't think men should be able to do that. So, what is the solution here? When I show you the solution, you will be mesmerized. They found through the research, what? Men are not good at aiming. Men are not good at aiming, unfortunately. So, they need to have a target to aim. Right? So what they have found out was, very interesting, painted the fly there. Simple solution. Painted the fly there. Simple solution. Maintenance cost came down to 15%. Simple. Now what I am talking about solution is in this context. Because we entrepreneurs, we need to look for such solutions in our real life and see whether we can create that. But if you do that only, you can create value. So value creation is all about, in that context, is going to be in that manner. Okay? So moving further. So now I was talking about innovation, because innovation is an important term for our entrepreneurs. We have to be very serious about this word innovation. Now, people are abusing the word innovation, loosely they are using, but if you are using innovation, after this you really need to use it in that way. One is, now, invention is something novel, right? This is MIT knowledge, MIT University knowledge. This is, anyway, invention is something novel, innovation is novel that brings revenue. Something novel that brings revenue, right? So therefore, innovation is all about what? Invention into well commercialized, marketed. So now I am teaching entrepreneurship in various universities. So some of the universities, they are very bright software developing people. They have multitude of inventions, right? Only 2 out of 10 are successful. Why so? None of them cannot be commercialized, cannot be marketed well. So we entrepreneurs, we should be able to identify there are millions of inventions, right? But we don't commercialize it well. So who is the master commercializer? My friend Steve Jobs. He's the master commercializer. He can market it well, present it well. So only 20% are going to be successful if you don't commercialize. So they are very fascinated with their invention, and they are closely holding on to it, and they are not sharing it, and they are not making money of it, and they die with it. You understand? I don't want any one of you to go through that process. What I want you to do is make money out of it and enjoy the life. Do whatever you want to do in that context. For therefore, we need to convert invention into innovation, right? So therefore, after today, I don't want you to use the word innovation in mistakenly. So if you are talking innovation, you are making money, right? So if you are making innovative solution, that means that can make money, that kind of things. Further, now I see, as I told you, this whole thing is all about entrepreneurship, is how to find a way to create value to the customer. Creating value is all about what? Here, performance of action that increase the worth of goods, services, or even a business. Increase. We need to increase. How much is a lime juice at Sperry & Sons? Kalpani? 140? How much is a lime juice at Kingsbury? 500? We'll say 500, right? then do you feel bad about paying 500 rupees at the lime juice at Kingsbury? No, why? Ambience. There are beautiful girls and boys, piano music, right? You are being served with a little bit of nuts. So you enjoy the lime juice. At Perensons, what is happening? You are standing, you drink, or you have a very hot environment. So value creation is all about that. I'm going a little deeper on that because you need to see how to create value to your product. Now, Priyantha was talking earlier, so I'm coming to Priyantha later, right? So about that. So this is a very important part. This is a very important part for you entrepreneurs. Now, that is at the bottom, that is your cost, and that is the price that you think it is the price. Now, if you are creating value, we need to find out for your product willingness to pay. What is the price point the customer is willing to pay? Now, if your WTP is high, why should you sell it at lower? Now, during the COVID, I have consulted hundreds of SMEs, right? Hundreds of SMEs. Some of the products are superior, but they are going to keep 10 rupees lower than the leader. So I told them, no, don't do that. Put the price up, improve your cash flow, and you are going to sustain, right? But they are scared to do that. Because they think leader is the best, but their product, this person's company product is far more better, right? Test it with your clients. So you need to do a little bit of research to find out your product is better or not, and if so you need to always work with the WTP is important, willingness to pay. So ensure the willingness to pay is there. So you have to do various kinds of things to find out. So that aspect need to be sorted out there. So therefore, you are creating value to the customer. So once that is done, now we need to, so we know now value creation is all about creating value to the customer. Now Priyantha is in the exports of cinnamon. Now cinnamon here, we are the best cinnamon producer in the world, right? We are the best producer because other cinnamon producers are producing cassia, right? Cassia is cancerous, but cinnamon is not, right? So cinnamon here is very good, but unfortunately, we are all selling it in the raw form, and now only we are seeing there is a value added cinnamon products are coming in. So there are a few companies doing that. The problem that cinnamon international buyers have is traceability. Traceability is what? From the tree to the final product, whether traceability is possible. If traceability is not possible, people are reluctant to buy. And I met a particular client, his counterpart is Japanese. Japanese have brought in what we have exported to them. They have a dog hair, cat hair, fecal material in our cinnamon. And in South America, people drink cinnamon stick in hot water. You understand? So therefore, can you imagine, before exporting, this was with a dog, and this man in South America now drinking hot cinnamon, that kind. So the quality is a major issue. Traceability is a very important part that we need to sort out. You get my point? So therefore, we need to sort out those things there. So make sure the WTP. So the point that you need to take is WTP. Moving further. Now I come to now we talked about value creation. So now we have to have a product to create value to the customer, right? So value proposition, right? So every product has a proposition, right? We need to propose to entice the customer in a way that the customer is going to be making use of it. Now there's an interesting model here, right? This was being developed by Alec Osterwalder. He changed the world way we think as Alec Osterwalder. Right? He come out with fascinating concept. He's a Swiss guy. Switzerland is not known for management, but this man is way above any Harvard or Yale or all kinds of things, universities in the world. Right? So what he said was, we need to identify. Now this is the customer. On to your right is the customer, and this is you, entrepreneur. So what he says is, entrepreneur role is identify gains and the pains of the customer. So that for that we need to identify the customer. We need to study. We need to do a little bit of research. So gains. So what is your role? You are going to be either gain creator or a pain reliever. Now we'll say Priyanta has headache, right? What would you do? Panadol. So Panadol, we'll say paracetamol, or to be on safe side, right? Paracetamol. So paracetamol is a pain reliever. So your product proposition is a pain relieving there. We'll take a yogurt. Now yogurt can be both pain reliever or gain creator. Now after this meal, now we had a nice meal here. Now you are being served a nice cup of yogurt. So that will complete your meal, isn't it? That will complete your meal. So that is then gain creator. So overtly completing your meal. But if you are having indigestion, what would the doctor recommend? Yogurt is semi-digested, so you are safe to eat yogurt. So that is a pain reliever. So likewise, enough and more examples I can tell you about pain reliever and gain creator. So what I am trying to say is, look at your business and see what are you doing. Are you pain reliever or gain creator, or are you pain reliever and both gain creator? So I'll take you an example here. This is how Uber came into the market. Taxi smartphone, right? So this is what the customer wanted, a taxi. Now the customer wanted a taxi, and prior to Uber or Pick Me, customers had pains and gains. So these are some of the pains. Waiting long time, overcharge, compete with others, unsafe drivers. Aren't we experienced that? Right? So the Uber had sorted out that by instant booking, cost system and assigned driver, that's all. So that was a pain relieving concept that came into the market. Then these are some of the, gains. Arrive on time, these are the kind of overtly satisfied or make you overtly happy. So arriving on time, fair price, professional, easy payment that are being sorted out. So what I am trying to say is, we need to look at each and every business. Now after this, some people come and say, my business may not have pains and gains. So we need to deep think through to find out how we can find a pain or a gain in that context and see, because that is how we need to create the thing. Now I'm going to go further into this, going into problem solving. Can you remember, my interpretation of an entrepreneur is a problem solver who is creating value to the customer, and in the process you are enjoying money or whatever, recognition, money, all kinds of things. Right? So that is where problem solution process have. These are the cardinal 4 questions you should be asking for yourself in your business. Cardinal 4 questions. First question is, do I have, stage 1, do I have a problem worth solving? That's a very important question. Do I have a problem worth solving? There are millions of problems are solved, but they are not worthwhile. So make sure, that means whether your proposition has a demand. You need to find out whether your proposition has a demand, right? So that aspect. So next question is, now that is we call problem solution fit. That is called problem solution fit, right? So you have a problem and you have a solution. I have taken you a couple of examples on the urinary bowl, Trojan horse and all that. I have spoken to you about the problem and solutions. So we need to look at the problem solution fit. Once that is done, we need to ask, then you have a solution. With that solution you go to 10-15 people, I have a solution like this, how do you like it? So you need to find out solution market fit. You need to find out solution market fit. That aspect is very, very important. That is where, have I found something people really, really want? If it is really, really not there, it doesn't make financially viable. So we need to make this financially viable. We need to find out whether it is really, really want, right? So once that is done, then this came after COVID. What is the channels of the distribution to reach the customer? That came out very profoundly during COVID in that context. So what are the channels of distribution? Now we saw evolving channels came, digital platforms and all these things came, and sometimes you get the food to home and all this happening here. So we need to now think about what is the most costly. Now I am into education. Now we reached education through Zoom and Teams, isn't it? Now yesterday I was listening to MIT webinar. That's quite a huge transformation in the world, right? So in that context. So therefore, then the 4th question is a very important part. How can I grow? But the problem today, most of our entrepreneurs, we have a serious problem of scaling. So that's what I'm going to talk about in the big way. Before that, I want to talk about Google a little bit, right? Who are the creators of Google? Larry Page and Sergey Brin. They were PhD dropouts. They conceptualized this idea in a piece of paper and then went to a particular person and explained that that was an investor. He wrote a book. I read his book, right? So he's asked this Larry and Sergey, how much money can it generate? Simple question, right? How much money can it generate? What would be the answer? Straight away in a piece of paper, just a piece of A4 paper, 100 billion. Can you imagine? He straight away gave open check to these two guys to start the business. You understand? So that is the confidence you have in your thing. But we are not all Larry Page or Sergey Brin. We understand? So they are very unique personalities. So therefore we need to be mindful way to scale, because only 3 out of 10 companies are going beyond control, what I showed you earlier. Only 3 out of 10 companies are going beyond existence, survival, control, take off, partnership. 3 out of 10 companies are going beyond control, not because not having business, but because what? Either the cash flow or the human flow. What do I mean by human flow? People. Not to having people to deliver, produce. You understand that aspect? That is what I am going to tell you now. So this is a Ravi, not Ravi. So this has been developed by Eisenman 2021, Harvard professor. What he said was, for you to grow, first of all, you should have a proven business model. I'm going to talk about business model in a later slides. Then also you need to have the able and access human capital. So you need to have the money as well as the people to do that. Third point is whether you are willing to do that. Whether you are willing to do that, you have to the willing power. In Sinhala we call una. We need to have the una. Hotness should be there in that context, right? And then finally, you need to be careful about, are you going to upset the large players? Are you going to wake the sleeping giants? Right? I can tell you example, Priyantha. I'm helping a particular company exporting cinnamon. Now, he has the chance to make the number of containers larger. So what he says is, no, I shouldn't do that. If I go beyond, large places are going to kill me. You understand? This is a reality. So these are so we need to understand the reality. We say grow, but Priyantha, grow won't happen like that. So if you are going beyond threshold, what happens is large players are blocking your progress to some extent. And this guy had a serious problem on HS codes. I hope you know HS codes, harmonious system codes, and exporting, and certain companies are wanting you to have a different HS code to give a better price benefit for them. But our DCOM, Department of Commerce, will not allow you to do that. So those kinds of things are happening in a big way, right? So all these things are happening in that sense. So therefore, we need to look at the Ravi or Ravi, whatever, in that sense. Okay, now moving further, we are coming into an interesting area. Now we need to look at our business, because during lunch I spoke to cross-section of you all. Some of you all are existing successful business entrepreneurs, some others are contemplating or already started early stage. This is a very important part. First of all, you need to understand what is the size of the market. Now currently I am helping some companies to set up the business. So when I ask what is the total market size, they are clueless. So we need to kind of estimate. We can't have exact data, but we need to have some kind of what is the total addressable market. We call TAM. So what is the total addressable market for this business? Then we need to ask, what is the serviceable available market in your domain, in your area of interest? Then only we come down to serviceable obtainable market. So So SOM is the area that you are getting money for yourself. Others are big dreams. I call locusine, right? Others are locusine, but we can't achieve in a given time. You understand? So we need to see whether your SOM is big enough. SOM is big enough for you to have a sustainable business, right? Later I'm going to talk about small business setup, right? So then I'll show you, because even you are making profit if you are small, even you are making big profit when you are small, don't try to cut the price down unnecessarily. Why? When you hire more people, what happens? You won't be able to manage, to balance the situation. Now, I'm telling you with hard experiences. When my wife and myself running the business, we are making a margin and we can give a very competitive price. But we need to be mindful about, once we hire people from various places and equipment and all that, once the business escalates, scaled up, whether we have enough margin for us to sustain. So that aspect you need to be mindful in upfront, beforehand. So that aspect is there. So simple example, total addressable market is 10 million, serviceable available market is 5 million, serviceable obtainable market is 2 million. That is computed as at 500 rupees, 4,000 customers. Now, is it big enough? This is your annual income. Is it big enough? You understand? So we need to be mindful TAM and SOM in that context. So my feeling is, if the SOM is not adequate, don't go for it, because you will be ever a micro entrepreneur. Will be ever for micro entrepreneur, unless otherwise you are happy with it. Right? Now I travel a lot, I meet some, now we'll say you have a house, in front of you have a small shop, in that you fry Chinese rolls and cutlets and all that, you put it around, there's no rent, wife is doing, husband is selling, so that person ever micro, right? So if that is the case, if SOM is not significant to them, no worries about SOM. But if you are thinking about growing the business, you need to see the size of the SOM. Serviceable, obtainable market is very important. Are we clear? So that aspect is need to be there, sorted out. Now I am coming to competitive advantage. So as I told you about entrepreneurship, we are talking about competitive advantage and create value creation, value proposition. So these are the areas that for entrepreneur need to understand. So competitive advantage in application, there are a couple of formulas are there. There are many formulas. I thought this is very interesting. So you need to look at, now you need to test out and see your willingness to price minus cost. So that is your margin. And that is minus competition. So then you can see whether, now if this is going to be greater than this, what happens? If yours is smaller than the competitor, that means you don't have a competitive advantage. You understand? So if you don't have a competitive advantage, in my next slide I am trying to show you what competitive advantage is all about. There will be a problem. There's another formula like this. So that is going to be competitive advantage, WTP, U, WTP competition plus cost of competition minus cost of U. Again, this should be tabulated for you to have a positive competitive advantage. Tabulated for you to have a competitive, right? Actually, I don't know, Tilina, I can send it. There's nothing I can. I don't know whether it is possible. I can do a PDF and send it to people, right? So you all can have no issues, right? You all have to take the country forward. Then look after us. That's all what I want, right? You understand what do you think, Mr. Deepak? Yeah. So look after us, take the country forward, look after us. So I'll send this to you, no problem, right? So this is a very nice computation of competitive advantage. So now you need to understand what is competitive. So I just want to introduce what is competitive. So in that diagram, it clearly shows the competitive advantage. Other people are pushing cubicles, whereas what are you doing? You are pushing a ball. So that is going to be efficient and effective and different. So you need to find out in your business how far you have a competitive advantage or what is your competitive advantage. Are we clear? So what is your compare? So think about, while I am talking, I want you to live with your business. Right? Everything what I talk relate to your business. Everything what I talk relate to your business, and see how does it feel. Some of them are not relevant to you. Reject it. Don't worry about some of the slides. Forget about it. But some 1 or 2 or 3 may be relevant to you. Think about it and take it back to your business in that context. Right? So therefore, but the problem is competitive advantage. To find out the competitive advantage, you can't understand it as a whole. As a whole, we find it difficult to understand. We have to dissect the company's process to understand the company there. That's where I'm coming in now. So we call that as the value chain. Now this is where all of us are making a mistake. So value is coming, we have value chain starting from the customer and going backward to our raw material. So value chain starts from the customer and going back to our raw material. So whole that process is called value chain. So you break our company's operation into parts, and each part we need to find out how to improve or enhance value. How to improve or enhance value, right? Right, okay. So in that context, we need to look at it. So once that is done, we are going to be very successful. So in other words, people, assets, processes in the business value chain transform series of our input resources, finished products and services. So if I put milk here, yogurt is coming from here. In the process, so many things are happening. We need to have a quality milk, right? Then we need to have a quality processing unit. Then packaging, marketing, and distribution, and chillers need to be well temperate. You understand? All kinds of things are to give a delight experience of the yogurt to the customer. So you need to break into the parts and see where we are failing and need to attest that in that context, right? So this is the explanation while I am having water. Can you please read it? So value chain disaggregates a company into its strategically relevant activities in order to understand behavior of costs and differentiation. We discussed differentiation early, then so we need to understand the cost. So if you can reduce the cost the best most possible way without upsetting the quality, I think that's what we need to have. So that aspect need to be sorted out. So we need to dissect the company's operation. Now, when I am talking like this, I hear this all the time. I'm meeting SMEs and all that. So we can't do all these things, right? That's what they say. But the point I'm trying to say is, if you want to be successful, I show them successful companies who have done. I can't mention, but there's a particular company who had gone through like this, and they now got a World Bank 100 million rupees. Can you imagine? Now they are going into backward integration. They are into now supplying. Now earlier they had the company, now they are going to backward integration. That means supplying of raw material. But they listened. They were breaking the process in that, and that is what happened. If we are lazy here, these are the problems that we have in Sri Lankan. We are complacent. We are being lazy to do all these things, and therefore we are mediocre in our outcome, right? That aspect is there. So now the important part we are coming into. Now we are coming into the idea called business model, right? So now when I say business model, sometimes now when you say successful person, maybe something he's doing is right. So something he's doing right is the business model, right? Something he's doing right is the business model, right? Now today I am getting a very, very interesting change in business model example. Interesting change in business model. Now, good old days, our three-wheeler taxis are for what? Good old days, our three-wheeler taxis are for what? Take hires, isn't it? What is their current business model? What is their current business model? You understand? So that is a fantastic example for a business model. Don't you think? So when I say that, some people get annoyed. But that is a reality. They are smart. Entrepreneurship. right? Without moving the three-wheeler at all, they are making huge money. You understand? So that is a change of business model. So that is why it's important to understand what is the business model of your business. BMC, we call BMC, you need to understand the business model of your business. So therefore, we need to look at it. Inputs, activities, outputs, aimed at, once again we are coming back to creating value to the customer. So can't you see that we can't do away with creative value. We can't do away with creating value in any of our activities. Everywhere we need to see where does it create value to the customer or where it doesn't. So that aspect need to there. So customers in the short, medium and the long term in that context, right? So business model is a powerful tool, right? Are you convinced? Are you convinced that business model is a powerful tool? Right. So therefore, Duminda taw chuttakin mata ඕන වෙනවා. Hari. So I'll be showing you a business model developed by Ash Myra. He called it Lean Canvas and or Startup BMC. Actually, this is an improvement or interpretation for the startup companies. Initial one is developed by Alec Osterwalder, right? That is for the larger companies to some extent, and this is going to be a business model for startup companies, right? So then, now for easy, first of all, we need to have a box one or cell one. Cell one, you need to articulate 2-3 interpretation of the problem, right? First of all, articulate 3 interpretation of the problem, and then come into the cell 2. If you solve this, what is the target group that is going to be enticed? Cell 2, customer segments, target customer. So there need to be looked at age, income, occupation, education, marital status, ethnicity, all that need to come into place. Age, income, occupation, all that. So segments and lifestyle profiles, all that are need to be understood there. Then come to the 3, then you need to tell what is my solution. Box 3, cell 3. Then you need to write what is the value proposition. Now I have taught you how to do the value proposition. We need to identify what pains or what gains or both are you addressing in your value proposition, right? So you need to write down, put a statement. I want you to write down a statement. Now value proposition, right? So we'll say, now I'm just a crude example, a dialogue. What is their value proposition? Future today. Whatever happening in the future, they are going to experience, for you to experience today. So that is there. So we align to it. You understand? So that's one way to look at it. There are likewise so many, your business, you need to have a value proposition. That need to be put it in writing, statement, right? So now cell 4. Cell 5 is how we are going to reach the customers. Earlier also I mentioned. What are you going to reach? The channels of distribution. Then come into revenue streams. Now this is where the problem, revenue stream is you can't have only one stream of income, because I can remember during COVID I was helping quite a lot of people. I realized some people have only one kind of people, right? So they are going, if they say no, they are going to go bust. So we need to have multiple. So that is why now if you are going, now there is a particular company, they were in the supply chain of a large supermarket. So their 100% business is taken over by the supermarket people. If supermarket people say no, what happens? So you need to develop, so I told them you need to have an alternative. So the supermarket people doesn't like them giving to another supermarket chain, but you need to have a retail sector or whatever. You need to have another income stream. So you need to sort that part in that context. And then also there is important part, revenue model. So you need to know, you need to understand how the money coming into my coffers. You need to understand. It should be multiple revenue models should be there. Multiple target group, multiple product categories, all kinds of things there. Then CLV means also you need to understand customer lifetime value, right? These are a little bit high flown. Right? At the beginning you need not to worry, but I am telling you to complete this explanation. So we need to understand what is the customer lifetime value. So we'll say because to get a customer, the other CAC means customer acquisition cost, right? So normally customer lifetime value over customer acquisition cost should be more than 3 for a successful company. That means lifetime value should be 3 times more than acquisition cost. You understand? That only helps. But it's not easy to get that. Even if you get 1, that's more than enough. You understand? So that's how it is. So then we need to look at the gross margin, right? With the variable cost and the income. Variable cost and the income, gross margin need to have understanding there. Then also, then we are coming to the cost structure, distribution cost, people cost and material cost and any other cost. You need to look at, be careful of the full calculation of the cost there, right? Now, 7, 8 is the unfair competition. Now that is very important. Now you have to be very careful. You have to discourage others to get copy it and do better. You have to discourage others to. So you need to prevent that happening. Large players can really massacre you. You understand? In Sri Lanka, so many things have happened here. Small entrepreneurship being gulped by large players without they knowing it. You understand? So we need to find a mechanism to do that. So today I don't have the luxury of time to explain any mechanism there, but that is important. Then finally coming into the theme, how to measure matrices, right? So you need to have some kind of ways to measure the performance. Not only the income and expenditure, maybe customer satisfaction, acquisition cost, and all that. Maybe so we have some. So this is a complete exercise. Duminda අර clip එක play කරන්න පුළුවන් දන්නේ නැහැ නේ.
In the previous video, we met Joe. He's a vegan, so he doesn't eat meat, milk products, or anything that comes from animals. He also works at Pasila, and he has noticed that the only way for a vegan to have lunch in that area is to prepare his own lunchbox, which usually is a drag. So he had an idea. What if there was a lunch restaurant serving vegan food in Pasila? Is there demand? Would people come? Can he make money? Let's take a look what his idea would look like as a lean canvas. What we have here is a blank lean canvas. Let's start by giving this idea a name. Vegan restaurant in Pasila. Next we can go ahead and specify who the customers would be. Vegans naturally, but they also would probably need to live or work in Pasila. And to further narrow down the first customer spec, it's easiest for Joe to first figure out if other people like him share his problem. This is a good idea since keeping the first customer definition narrow dramatically helps the next steps, and you can always broaden the audience once there's traction. So maybe 25, 35 years old and with reasonably high income. Done. Next up, the problem. Joe already knows that there are no restaurants in Pasila serving vegan food, and at least for himself, it's really annoying to prepare your own lunch every day. What could be the ingredients of the solution? Joe thinks that his customers would appreciate good quality food, and also the restaurant would obviously have to be nearby the Pasila office complexes. And also the service should be quick since usually people have tight schedules during the workdays. The unique value proposition should boil down how you're different from everybody else and what you're worth paying attention to. In this case, it's quite easy to be the best when you're the only one. And for the unfair advantage, Joe's brother happens to be a chef and a vegan himself. Plus, he's also interested in opening his own restaurant. Making vegan food taste exquisite is no simple task, so it's definitely hard to copy. Channels. How can Joe reach the 25 to 35-year-old vegans who work in Pasila? Outdoor ads near workplaces, obviously. Where else are vegans using their time? Vegaanifoorumi for one, Facebook groups. Facebook even lets you target advertisements by age, interest, location, and so on. Joe also thinks that word of mouth has a crucial role in this customer segment. As metrics, it's good to have numbers that are actionable and react quickly. Joe chooses metrics that tell him if his solution box is working. For example, number of returning customers really tell him if people are finding value in his solution. Other metrics that he chooses are quality of food and average turnaround time. At this stage, costs and revenue are best to be left really rough, since all of this is just best guesses. One good tactic is to estimate the customer acquisition cost and the lifetime value per one customer. So how much would it cost to get one customer through the door and how much would they be bringing money in over their entire customership? Joe's estimate is that it would take 19 euros on average to get one customer, and one customer would visit 30 times on average and pay 12 euros for each lunch. That adds up as 19x as the LTV CAC multiplier, which is in a good territory. It's good to highlight that all of this is just an educated best guess at this stage. To validate whether the canvas has anything to do with reality, Joe will make a series of MVP tests to turn those yellow traffic lights either green or red. In the next video, we will take a look at those MVPs and record our learnings using innovation accounting.
Thank you, Duminder. Get prepared for the other two also. Duminder, so you can see now having a business model like that will help you to not to miss out anything. So it's very important to have a business model. So I'm going to show you another business model. So that will be very focused to Sri Lanka. That will help you to comprehensively asking questions. Have you done this? Have you done this? So that will ensure the comprehensiveness of your business, right? So therefore, be mindful about the business model in that sense. So we'll go to the next one, right? Now, this is developed for Sri Lanka. So first one, the box cell one is, first of all, we need to have what is our business prospect. So what is the gap in the industry? What is the gap in the market that you are fulfilling, right? Then coming to box 2, what is your value proposition? So again, pains and gains and all that need to be looked into. Then box 3, what is the level of risk that you are taking? That is, in Sri Lanka, very important. I can remember during Yahapalaniya, where we had a web concept called Enterprise Sri Lanka. They are giving zero interest loan to people. But very few people have taken. University students, they give zero interest. So the other entrepreneurs, they are given 12% interest, they give 6%. Utilization is very poor. So you get my point. So we need to look at in that. So we need to look at. So the number 3 and 9 is all about that. Now today, number 9, there is a UN-funded organization for agri-produce people, SAP, Smallholder Agriculture Participatory Program. Smallholder Agriculture Participatory Program, SAP. They are UN funded, they have funds. I went and met them, they are not being utilized, right? So people who know, they get the advantage, they don't tell. Likewise, there are enough of money in the country. People don't make use of it, right? So that is why 9 is very important. We need to understand where the government is going. So when the government is interested now today buzzword is entrepreneurship. That is why we are meeting here today. Entrepreneurship is a buzzword, right? So but then you need to look around whether there are support is happening. And then another thing I want to tell you. I am in a committee where Professor Lakshmana Vatavala, right, is there. And he has made it happen together with the committee. National Credit Guarantee Institute. National Credit Guarantee Institute. Now, National Credit Guarantee, because the problem for entrepreneur and SME is what? Getting loans. Because they don't have money, they don't have land to mortgage, so they have a problem there. So that is why Credit Guarantee Institute is being incorporated. So I attended a webinar in that ADB has pledged $100 million US. And for women in entrepreneurship, they call VFI, right? V5 or VFI or whatever, women in finance, right? So then they have pledged $50 million US for them. So there are enough and more things are happening. So that is why we need to be, that cell 9 is going to be in Sri Lanka, very important. We need to understand what is happening there and align your business accordingly, and that has a benefit to you. Sometimes it's easy for you to grow your business, but you need money. You may need seed money, startup capital, or maybe you need to have a working capital issue, or maybe a new project you wanted to go into, new capex, capital expenditure, equipment, and all that. So you need money, so therefore you need to go into that. So that's a by the way. So cell 3, innovation appetite. Then we come to the cell 4, customers, stakeholder. So you need to understand, as I discussed earlier, you need to get them understand well. Then we come to cell 5, competitor. Most of the SMEs and entrepreneurs I meet here, they are not bothered about competition. They are just looking at their price and they are just, so we are very poor in understanding competitor dynamics. We need to play our cards accordingly, right? So we need to play it accordingly. So this is a serious problem. However much we tell them, they don't know anything. Who are they catering to all that? To be very frank with you, when I started my company, then that time also I was not bothered about that, right? That paid me very badly. Sometimes my pricing strategy was not correct. So I need to correct my pricing strategy according to my quality. That aspect need to be there. Then coming to 6, revenue scheme, as I told you earlier. We need to get a sorted out revenue. Then we need to calculate the costing and then the human resource. Most of the entrepreneurs are poor in managing the human resources. They think anybody is everybody, anybody should be able to do everything. So that is a major problem. So you need to create job description, JDs, and you need to, what do you think, Priyanta? Right? Their job description and value their contribution. Because I have seen entrepreneurs, the clerk is sometimes being called for delivery. So he is a driver, right? Only thing that maybe he doesn't get the work done from cleaning the toilet only. You understand? So that's how it is to be. So however small you are, be mindful about some of these things, because that will be useful for you to get a something, right? 1 second, I get a, right. So I think time is also catching up a little bit. Now, when you have this cells sorted out, this is a very important exercise. Now you get now Priyanta, you may have some, now during the COVID, that interesting thing happened. By now you know, out of your employees who are loyal to you, right? And also you may have found during the COVID and up till now, some of the champions who are capable, young, untapped talent, you would have captured. I have seen that happening among our companies. You understand? Now loyal people who, now I can tell you a nice story. One of the companies, during the COVID period, the cash flow is a major issue. The employees said, sir, pay us half salary. Can you imagine? Pay us half salary, we will work for you, don't close the company, right? Then the sir said, okay, I will pay back you the half salary later with interest. So win-win relationship. Brilliant concept. What do you think, Mr. Deepa? Right? So likewise, there are good leaders are there, but not all are going through. Some people are, some are old hands, doesn't want to give it to the other people. I think that you are experiencing. So, but then young fellows are coming out with innovative ideas. So this is the time to test out the robustness of your cohort of employees. This is the time, because encourage them to come out with it, be receptive in that sense. So what I'm trying to say is get some people you have a brainstorming session, have a little bit of post-it and paste it, and get everybody to write their ideas and put it on the post-it here on this, and then you do a discussion and identify the best business model for your business, right? So this is a very powerful tool. In Sinhala I call Addutuwai Pratyakshay. You understand? Addutuwai Pratyakshay, because it's happening, right? So that's how it is to be looked at. Moving further. So the 3 things that we need to look at is problem, choice, stretch. Because now this is a very important part that we need to understand. Now, a lot of people are challenging me in this context. I believe we need to stretch people. A lot of people don't believe that, but I believe we need to stretch people. Put to the limit. When you push them to the limit only, they come out with innovative solutions and they make things different. So my suggestion is push to the limit and get the best. But do it in a very humane manner, not in a very monstrous manner. You understand? Do it in a humane manner and push to the limit and get the best. So pushing to the limit is very important. So that is why stretch. Actually, I am not the one who is telling that. It is being said by management guru C.K. Prahalad from India. He is a Harvard professor. What he said was, internal resources need to be stretched, for them to come out with better solutions. And because we are in a dynamic world, always resources are scarce, so therefore we need to get the best. So that aspect is there. Now coming to the next one. So point I wanted to establish here is, sell the problem you solve, not the product or whatever. So this is where the value proposition is connected beautifully, what we were talking earlier. Sell the problem you solve. So that is where that, so now I was being asked to a particular large company in coir products, coir exports company for a training session. So then I asked, what business are you in? They said, we are in coir business. I said, no. Now they are making brooms, floor mattresses and mats and all that. So what business are they in your opinion? What business are they in? Kalpani? Manufacture? No. We are looking at in the context of value proposition. What business are they in? They are manufacturing brooms, mats, we'll say brooms and mats. So brooms and mats are for what? Cleaning. So we need, so if you open that window, we are in the business of cleaning, we will come out with innovative products. So we need to get that sorted out. So we can't say we are in coir business, right? So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So these are the kind of challenges, these are the kind of transformation that we need to go through. Okay. Now I'm coming into the implementation part of it. Now we have certain ideas and implementation. So this I'll tell you a story. I think we have time to tell this story also. There are three penguins being shipped to a particular state in America of a zoo. In that zoo they had about 26 other penguins also. But there is a difference. These penguins from next day onwards, they go to the pool and they play and all that are there. Whereas other 26 penguins are lethargic like most of our, right, we understand, most of some other people like that. So there's a difference. But these three penguins didn't bother. They continue to have fun and all that. Then after a month or two, the zookeeper went to the management and said, our highest earning entity is the penguin entity, right? What has happened is, over time, what has happened was, those 26 penguins got the familiarity with that and they went to the pool and they were having fun now. Now there are 29 penguins having fun. Then there's a management thinking coming out from it, something like this. Now this idea was new to them, the lethargic penguins, the idea was new to them, so that they took their attention, right? And these people, it is visible, they are playing all over there in that context. And these three penguins didn't give up, they continue to have a good time there, so there's something good in here, other people also join. So my suggestion to you is, if you have done all the things what I have told you right now, please make sure whatever you are doing should be novel, innovative. Whatever you are doing, see whether it is visible to the relevant target group that you are talking. Don't give up, continue to do so. Sustainable. Don't give up, continue to do so. So if you do that, one day it's going to be successful, right? Now you can see Steve Jobs was telling, stay hungry, stay foolish, stay hungry, or stay hungry, stay foolish. And then Elon Musk was telling, something important enough you should try, even if probable outcome is a failure. Because in my next slide I'm talking about the failures. Having said all these successes, I'm also going to talk about failures. Because we need to understand how the failure is happening, right? So we need to understand that also. This failure is not the opposite of success, it is part of the success. Powerful comment, right? I have failed many a times, right? But I am proud about where am I today, right? I have failed many a times, I am proud about where am I today. Then Einstein says, person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. It's not about you. All of you are trying to do something new, So I support you to do that. So we together we will make this change happen in this country, right? Now we'll come where the failures are happening. We say early stage failure, late stage failure. Early stage failure happen is false starts. What do I mean by false start is, we go into business without doing homework adequately, without doing research adequately. So that's a characteristic of an entrepreneur, impatience. Make things happen, just do it. Karla balamu, right? You understand. So that's how it is to happen. So false start is there. Then also another thing, false positive. False positive is what? Something like this. Because when you, most of the people I ask do a research and come, what they do? Kalpani. What they do is, they talk to a cross section of friends. Go ahead, this will be wonderful, you proceed. We put our hands in, what happens then? After the initial sales, there's no one to buy your product or service. You understand? That is because what we call in management, we have a curve here. Innovators, early adopters, late adopters, laggards. So you produce the market for innovators only. Beyond innovators, there's no market. Early adopters, late adopters. You understand? So then you had the initial boom, so that's the false positive. You have initial boom and that's about all. You have initial boom, that's about all. So therefore there's a serious problem there. So we need to be careful about that. So that is the possibility of failure. Not that I want any one of you to failure. I give my full support for you to be successful, but we need to be mindful about potential or possible failures that you are going to go through. Late stage failure, speed trap. Because you have a demand now, this is a demand pull. Demand pull is happening, the business is growing, then speed trap is all about either you don't have enough money or you don't have people to do that, therefore your quality goes haywire. Your product qualities go, service quality go haywire, delivery delays are taking place, all that. Now in your case, traceability is, if you skip the traceability part, you are sending cinnamon with dog hair. You understand? So dog hair is a killer, right? So likewise. So therefore we have a finance, so therefore we need to look for help wanted, that is about financial or human resource. So that is, so I will not talk about this one a little bit heavier, with the interest of time, I will not talk about that. So this is a very powerful framework for us to look at it. Then now, Dominda, I wanted to explain a couple of websites, right? This is what I developed. So there are a lot of guidance given there. It will question you certain things. Can you play the left one? Yeah. Now this model is interactive. Now when you press the middle one, it will go to the relevant material, then go down a little bit. So it will tell you what are the kind of things that you need to know. You understand? So it's a very self-interacting. So you keep on exploring that. You will get certain inputs, and there are nice video clips that I have done, some others have done also. So you will get to know quite a bit. I'm not trying to promote this, but I felt it was very useful for you to check your knowledge and all that. I under a framework, you know. Go to the down again. Press another one. Human resources. Human resources. Vametini anneka. Go down. Now this talks about 9 grid and then also CoQ12. Go down. This is a very powerful thing for the entrepreneurs to understand. Now this is where the employee engagement is all about. So if you want to know employee engagement, you can visit and see these are the 12 questions that you need to ask, and you see whether your employees are engaged or not. You get my point? So this is where it's very powerful tool there. Okay, we can, that's the idea. So we can go to the other website, Dominda, thank you. Now this is the European Union, this is a powerful website. European Union thought future of the European Union is all about entrepreneurship. So what they have done was, they have invested billions, and particular university took the challenge and they have created this website. It has a fantastic powerful tools there, right? So can you go to the tools? Tools. Uda tools. Palatian. But there are about 20 odd tools are there for you to know. I am using them, right? 20 odd tools are there. So deadly waste canvas, focus groups, implementation plan, marketing cards, marketing mix, pestile analysis, partner radar. Partner radar is very good. If I knew that, I wouldn't have made that mistake. You understand? So that's so how to select a partner. So this website is a wealth of information. So what I'm trying to say is these are the kind of things that we need to look at it. Thank you, Duminda. Well done. Right? So that is there. So go down a little bit. Sorry, I have to do. Right. Now, this is so now we are here for learning. No? So I always believe I know very little and I'm keen to learn. I learn from everybody. It doesn't matter who they are. Right? So learning process, learning experience, we need to look at first one from the top, concrete experience. So we have to do something without doing something. So we need to do and experience it. And once they've done that, we need to be reflexive about it, then reflecting on the experience. We need to think about, you have a business, you make it happen, and with that happening, we need to see whether what have we done or not in that context. Then we need to have an abstract and see what is the learning that we have taken, and they are in that context. Therefore, then also coming into the activity, then you implement that. You take something and you try it out. So this learning experience is a all continuum thing we have to keep on doing over and over again. So that's how it is happening there. So I am going through this learning curve every day. I want every two to go through in that context. So this makes me to come to the last slide. So I have spoken 10 points for you. So these are the 10 points that I have explained for any entrepreneur that they should be knowing any of all these things. So we need to know what is value creation, what is value proposition, and in your business, what problem are you solving? What problem are you solving in your business? That aspect need to be looked into. Then it is cardinally important to understand the total addressable market. Accordingly, what is your SOM, serviceable, obtainable market, need to have a clarity in that. Then also, what is the competitive advantage? I have given you a formula. I have shown you how the competitive advantage need to be looked in, that aspect there. Then also value chain, because dissect the operation and look at the value chain and see where the value chain is weaker and strengthened, because value chain starts from the customer, receiving the goods to the customer, and from backwards to we calculate the value chain there. Then most importantly, number 7, the business model canvas. So it's very powerful. You see how it is going to work. And then roadmap, the focus groups and the brainstorming sessions that you do. And then novel, visible, sustainable, and try your best to avoid failure. Right? But if fail, don't give up. We all have gone through failure. Right? If fail, don't give up, because we need you, and in that context we need to look at it. I believe for that we need to have a business model. So if you stick to a business model, dissect the business model, look at each and every cell is being addressed in your own way, get guidance to execute the business model, then chances of failure is remote. So you need to define your business model and see. Now this is a prompter. This is a prompter for you to check whether your business model is in the right course. So that aspect need to be sorted out in that sense. So that's about all from me. So I just want to say good luck. And these are the kind of elements of an entrepreneur that you will be looking at. So we have 10 minutes. Tilan, shall we, is there any clarification? No problem, no? Yeah, anyone wanted to clarify to make my life difficult? That's fine. Right, any questions? Anybody? Either language, Sinhala, English, doesn't matter. Anyone? Kalpani has a question? Yeah. Go ahead.
When you're figuring out and talking about this what is your advice? Like when you have conducted research and example, when I started my business, one of the key points that I clear was I stick to one set of suppliers.
Yeah.
And also I didn't know the entire potential of the market. I
Yeah.
And at the end, with the COVID, the difficulties that I faced,
Yeah.
I found it very difficult to provide. I mean, there was a demand for the product, but I was unable to provide it at the end because I stick to one set of suppliers,
Yeah.
and also I didn't calculate how much is the potential market that I'm going to face.
Yeah. So now in your case, Kalpani, you have a supplier issue and you are depending on one or two suppliers because you thought that those suppliers will be adequate for you to meet the demand. So that is where so if you had done your, sorry, now I'm going back to the TAM because you asked from the TAM, no? So if you had some ideas, if you have a vague idea, size of the market, you would not be depending on those two suppliers. So that is the mistake that you have done. Now the second, so that's so now you are experiencing that. Now the second thing is, now in your supplier group, have you explored all possible, what is the size of the supplier group? So we need to explore that and see, because some of the suppliers may be well known, but they can meet your demand and also. So you need to do some kind of an extensive search. Now I'll tell you a good example. Now today there are aging population, right? How many aged care institutions are there in Sri Lanka? How many? Just a guess. What do you think? Just a guess. Give me a figure. 100. Oh, you are much accurate. Now I didn't think like that. So I did a search. I found it's about 100 to 150 aged caring institutions are there in Sri Lanka. You understand what I'm trying to say? So likewise, we need to do an inquiry and see, maybe Google search, or maybe go to a particular institution, or maybe do something. So you need to do and search and see, because you need to have your plan B. Always you need to question, by any chance, this supplier. Now I'll tell you a fantastic story. But do you know IKEA? IKEA, what is IKEA? IKEA is a CKD, completely knocked down furniture supplier in the world, leading brand, IKEA. IKEA guy, the name is coming from his name and where his village is, right? He's a crude guy. So IKEA come out with a directory sales company, and his company was extremely well, and out of it furniture is picking up extremely well there, right? So then what happened was, people were starting buying his furniture more than the leading players. His furniture more than the leading players. Then what happened was, leading players have told the suppliers, if you supply to IKEA, we are not buying from you. True story, right? Now this man high and dry without a supplier. You understand? So what he did actually, so these are the kind of innovative, this is the entrepreneur quality. So he looked around in Sweden, no one is supporting. He went to Poland. At that time, Poland is coming out of communism. So there are enough and more ramshackle factories are there. He pumped money to the factories and then he got them to produce. Then still he got the products to Sweden at a lower cost. And that's how he started. That's how, you understand what I'm, so you need to try out your entrepreneurship in that sense. So you need to look at, you need to go and talk to suppliers, visit their factories, talk to them and see where, and you can go into a supplier partnership. Maybe help them to buy a machine or two, that kind of thing. Or help something, if you can't afford to do that, you may help him to get a loan. So we need to build that kind of a, what we call a partnership in that sense. So my suggestion to you is, do a thorough search on supplier cohort and see, well, there may be better suppliers than what you have now. Now, so you say that you have a serious supplier problem, there is a market issue there. Now, what I'm asking is, now have you got it by a surprise or you knew it is going to come?
What happened was I had two issues. One was I wasn't aware, I wasn't ready with my supplier list. The other one was I didn't know the full potential of my market.
That's exactly, yeah.
So I wasn't ready for that demand.
Yeah.
So once my products got, example, when I first put it to the market, I put it to a few shops where they are mainly promoting the products to the embassies, the expats. and I didn't expect it to get sold out that fast. And my products, I remember, so I was producing sauces. There was one event, all the products got sold out within the day. I had to restock for the second time the same day.
I see.
Right? And with that, I wasn't ready for the demand that was created.
That's correct.
Within a very small time, and the same time the COVID happened.
Yeah.
So I didn't even have the opportunity to go and look for suppliers again.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at getting down the products, the ingredients from other countries.
Yeah.
Then again I faced issues with other supporters in Sri Lanka, like example Good Market.
Yeah.
So Good Market, they always want to go ahead with businesses who promote local things.
Yeah.
And also on the other hand, now our economy, like we got into economic crisis where the imports were
curtailed.
Yeah. So then there also I faced another issue. So I had issues in both sides for not knowing my potential market, as well as I didn't do enough research to know who could be my potential suppliers.
Another thing I would like to add is always think about a plan B. Plan B is very important because that will help you to sometimes tackle the crisis situation. So if you don't have a plan B, there is a crisis. Okay? Any other questions? Anyone else? What about you?
So we can get about 2 minutes.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Okay then, I have a question. I think she has.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, go ahead.
No, okay. So I think then time is also running out. I have to tell you, it's a pleasure meeting with you, and I really want to see, I want to hit the 2 million target of entrepreneurs. I want to hit the 2 million target of entrepreneurs and take the country responsible, forget about the politicians, and then make the country economically viable and sustainable and look after us, because we are getting older. All the best to you. All the best.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dr. Ravi. It's actually an absolute, pleasure and honor having you here today for the session. Thanks a lot once again. Thank you so much. So we have a small token of appreciation to present. I'm going to present you. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Ravi. So now we're going to have the next session. It's actually about the entrepreneurial creativity. It's like basically focusing on creative climate, creative mindset, and creative process and creative products. In order to conduct this session, actually, we're going to have an international resource person, and he's a Professor John F. Cabra. He's an associate professor from the State University of New York College, and he's also from the Buffalo's International Center for Studies in Creativity. And he's also Fulbright scholar at the University in Colombia. Professor Cabra, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hi, Professor Cabra. This is Tilan. Thanks a lot for being here. It's a great pleasure for having you. Thank you so much for your presence, and thank you so much for taking the time for our Sri Lankan young entrepreneurs. We have in our audience, we have nearly 100 young entrepreneurs, coming all parts of Sri Lanka. Not only from Colombo, but also the remote areas as well. And also in terms of the sector, we got like a variety and technology, and then, the creative stuff, pottery and handicrafts, and also export-oriented startups like spices, tea, and so we have a real group of, it's an amalgamation of, various sectors. So I'm pretty sure your session is going to be very productive. Thanks a lot once again. You can start your session, sir.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. Quite an honor to be with you all, and good afternoon. So let me just begin by giving you a little bit of a background. I'll extend a little bit on the invitation, on the introduction. And so you see here logos of the different organizations where I have done work as a way of promoting creative thinking and entrepreneurship and even intrapreneurship. So I will share with you that with this, in the introduction, it was mentioned that I work for Buffalo State College in New York. And so Dr. Ravi, the previous presenter, had mentioned the technique brainstorming. And that technique brainstorming actually came from this department. But we also, since 1967, we've had full-time dedicated instructors and researchers that have examined the scientific study of creativity. And so as I moved to the other companies, I can tell you that with regard to Fisher-Price Toys, I was brought on board back in 1990 to start up their training and development and organization development department. I did the same thing for American Airlines, and this is before I became an academic. This is launching a department for their Miami, Caribbean, Latin America division, where I did do entrepreneurship as opposed to intrapreneurship, was with this nonprofit that you see here called Institute for Myanmar United, which I co-founded with others. And initially the work was to bring back students or students that have graduated from the college and do social innovation work in Myanmar. But of course, as you know, with the coup, we could no longer send students and other experts to Myanmar. And so now we have shifted. This is the plan B that Dr. Ravi mentioned. And that is our plan B is now to work with the refugee populations in the United States. The other logo you see here on the right-hand side, top right, I'm also a faculty member for the Joint Special Operations University, which is a unit or university within the U.S. military. And we work with our allies, we work with officials in the United States as a way of tackling some very wicked problems dealing with their context. And so I was brought on board to expand their work around creative problem solving and design thinking. And so a lot of the content that you will see in this session is topic areas and techniques and processes that I have incorporated in my work in these organizations. I did forget to mention that Innovation that you see in the top left is a consulting firm that works with advancing scientific innovation and helps researchers in research and development departments at universities transfer that knowledge into potential startups or to transfer that knowledge into organizations. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of background in terms of my expertise, and then I'm going to move on to connect creative thinking with entrepreneurial and entrepreneurship thinking. So this is the design that I have. And one of the things I want you to take in consideration as entrepreneurs, I want you to consider a systems view approach for looking at entrepreneurial creativity. There are folks that see entrepreneurship as just being and putting effort in creative product. Others may just see the creative person in an entrepreneur. And I'm inviting you to consider a whole system in your work and your efforts in launching businesses and growing the businesses. So this session is designed around this agenda. Let me begin by sharing with you a framework that was developed by the gentleman that you see there on the right in 1961. Mel Rhodes is his name. He set out to look for the defining definition of creativity. And he searched books and he searched articles, research articles, and he couldn't find the definition, this predominant definition. And the reason being because creativity is a multifaceted phenomena. It's got so many components to it. It's a complex phenomena. And so what he did do is he began to organize the definitions around in certain buckets, in certain areas. And so that evolved this thinking to what you see here as the 4Ps model. And I started looking at his work and I said, there's a lot of connections here with regard to a systems view of entrepreneurial creativity. And so the session will go through all these different elements so that you can have a much deeper understanding and appreciation for systems view of entrepreneurial creativity. And so as I described to you a little bit about this framework, entrepreneurs have a certain mindset that is conducive to what they produce. And that is, when I look at the creative person, it is about being open-minded. It's about being sustaining one's effort. It's about tolerating ambiguity and uncertainty. It's about willing to take risks. And so there's scholars that have done work in that area. Then there's the creative process. If I were to ask you to identify the different steps that go into your entrepreneurial process, we as scientists can make that process explicit so we can teach others to follow that process. And not all processes are the same. And so entrepreneurial creativity also involves the examination and appreciation and the implementation of those steps that go into the entrepreneurial process. The word press here, it's just to stay in keeping with the 4Ps, involves the psychological climate. It also involves the psychological environment and also the culture. And so entrepreneurs have to closely curate an organizational climate or a startup climate that is conducive to entrepreneurial activity in an organization. And it also involves looking at the traditions, the values, the customs that are going to get formulated over time as your business starts to grow. And when it grows into a bigger organization, you can well imagine how those traditions and values start to get more entrenched and get harder and harder to actually move or to change over time. Those interactions have an influence on the results, on the output, on the product. And so there are scholars that actually examine what does a creative product comprise. And so we'll also get into a scholar that actually examines this particular construct in this systems view. But you as entrepreneurs cannot assume that once you launch a product or a service into the marketplace, that it means an automatic embrace or an adoption of that product and service, right? It's only when you have a sustained adoption of that product or service that you can consider that an innovation. And I'm making a very clear distinction here between, with regard to creative, like working solutions or creative solutions and innovation. And until that product or service is adopted and sustained, then one cannot call that an innovation. And inherent in what I just said means there's really an important effort that one needs to place in propensity and working at making sure that these products and services are adopted by the marketplace or by the context. And that is what involves here the change that sticks. That is the sustaining, the adopting of your products and services. And so I will get into each of these elements throughout the course of my session. All right, so let me move on to, the one thing I do want to share with you, which is a very important piece, that when you look at a lot of research in terms of what accounts for the largest variance for people's perception of an entrepreneurial climate, it's actually the leadership. And that's a big percentage. That 67% that accounts for the results is attributed to the leadership that you will demonstrate in your organizations and in your startups. And that has an influence on the interaction of these three pieces, what happens in that interaction that produces the results, and what you do to sustain to making your product and services stick into the marketplace or into the context. Lots to consider, and I'll start unpacking this model in more details. So let's start off with the psychological climate that is conducive to entrepreneurial creativity, which we're calling here press, because it presses upon you when you're facing that climate. And that press can be conducive to entrepreneurial creativity, or it might not be conducive. And so we as entrepreneurial leaders need to be curators of that psychological climate, because it has such a strong influence on creativity and entrepreneurial activity. So one of the things that I want to share with you is a study that when I read it, it left my mouth open. I dropped my mouth when I started looking at the results. And so this study, which you see here as a title, Fear as a Driver of Implicit Bias Against Creativity. So let me unpack that a little bit more and share with you the methodologies that these researchers used to get a certain results that for me, I found it to be noteworthy. So what they did was they took their subjects, the participants in this study, and they had all of them complete a measure or a questionnaire that examined openness to experience. And the reason why they did that is because they wanted to control for a different explanation for the results that they might get. So if someone was super open to experiences, that might confound or create complications for the explanation results. And so they have folks complete that measure, and then later when they're doing research to control for it and put it to the side so they can just isolate the particular results and the explanation of those results. The second thing that they did was they randomly assigned participants to watch a respective video. So here, and there were 3 videos. This first one involved a daycare center. This was a news report, and it was a very short video, and involved the abuse of children at that daycare center. The reason why they selected that video was to ignite anger in the participants that watched that short video clip. The next one, the paranormal activity, involved a spirit that controlled a young girl and her mind. And that short video clip, for those participants that were assigned that particular video to watch, was designed to ignite fear. And the last one, the wedding scene, as you would expect, was designed and selected to ignite happiness. So after they watched the videos, or, because each participant can only see one video, what they did was they had them complete a survey to determine their mood after they had watched their respective video. And so they had a survey, which is a reporting back of their mood. Now, I underlined these words in point 4 and in point 5 to bring to your attention what really caught me, that really caught my interest. And then I'll connect it to this entrepreneurial climate. And so I underlined here, evaluate level of creativity, because these participants, after they watched their respective video, they were asked to evaluate the level of creativity of 2 products, one being self-driving vehicles, and another one involving a sidewalk that when you walk on it, it generates energy. And then the last thing that they did is they also had them complete a measure or a questionnaire that examines explicit bias measure against or towards creativity. Now, let me share with you the results. Those individuals that saw the video involving the paranormal activity, where the spirit took control of a young girl's mind and body, it's that fear, or watching that video, that when they completed the measure of implicit bias towards creativity, they had the highest score in terms of implicit bias against creativity versus the anger and happiness that had the lower score, meaning that the bias against creativity wasn't as strong. Now, that's just with a short video clip. Look at how they evaluated those 2 creative products. those individuals that saw those videos, the videos that were designed to prompt fear, when they evaluated those two products, meaning the autonomous vehicle and the sidewalk that allows people to generate energy by walking on that sidewalk, those participants ranked the level of creativity as being low. I found that to be fascinating, because if that can happen with just a short video, can you well imagine employees that work at a startup or in an organization? Can you imagine every time they attend a meeting where they ask employees to share their ideas and to engage in intrapreneurial activity, and they find those meetings oppressive each time they go to these meetings? So that is to say, when they're asked to give ideas, what follows is immediate criticism. Can you imagine how people will view and approach creativity and creative thinking and approach evaluating new thinking? So if this could happen with a short video, can you imagine something over time? And so you as entrepreneurs and as entrepreneurial leaders need to take in consideration that you need to be curators of a climate that's conducive to entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship within an organization. This gentleman here, the late Göran Ekvall, a Swede, who actually examined dimensions of creative climate, and I'm connecting it here to entrepreneurial climate. I'm going to just describe to you these dimensions, and as I describe them to you, I will invite you that in your mind, try to consider either how you have helped to encourage these dimensions or undermine it, or you may look at it from how your organization has either helped or undermined these dimensions. So the first one is idea support, meaning to what extent does the organization, when they hear one's idea, supports and encourages people to continue developing the idea. The second one, which is challenge and involvement, to what extent does the organization or the startup make people feel that they love their work and they feel like they're challenged and they're invigorated by that challenge and they're involved in the day-to-day activities and the operations of the startup or the organization. Dynamism is to what extent do people feel that they go from one project to another one and they find that exciting because each one, again, is new to them. This one, play and humor, is to what extent does an organization allow for people to engage in play and humor? Because there's plenty of research to suggest that positive mood is connected to creative thinking and to entrepreneurial activity. So if people are not allowed to play or to use their humor or express it, then that is not helpful. The next one is debates. To what extent do people in an organization allow to express a different point of view that's contrary to the administrators or to colleagues within that organization? Now that's different than conflict. Conflict is the only dimension that has a negative association with entrepreneurial climate, because conflict is about personal conflict, meaning where people feel like there's insult that takes place when people share ideas. Risk-taking is to what extent are people allowed to take risk in trying out their new ideas. Trust and openness is to what extent does the organization trust your decision-making and your thinking around advancing a particular idea. To what extent do they give you the freedom to try out those ideas? And the idea time, this second to last, is to what extent does the organization allow for or give people their own company time or startup time, right, to experiment and further development of a new product or service. Right? So that's part of the entrepreneurial climate. And again, I pose a challenge to you that when you are in your organizations, think about to what extent you serve as curators of these dimensions, whether it's in a startup, as entrepreneurs, or intrapreneurs. Let me move on to the entrepreneurial or the creative entrepreneur, which is what we're calling the creative person. This is one of my favorite definitions of creativity. And as you see here, creativity is the ability to modify self-imposed constraints. And so there's a lot to unpack in this definition. So one thing I will bring your attention to is the word ability. Ability suggests that everyone is creative, but have different levels of creativity. It also suggests that it can be trained so that if your level of creativity is here, you can enhance it even further. The word modify suggests there's an intrapersonal definition or aspects to this definition, meaning that emotional intelligence, meaning one's ability to be self-aware, and then the other component of emotional intelligence, which is about acting upon that self-awareness, right, to modify self-imposed constraints. Constraints could be one's fear of taking risk, could be fear of being criticized, could be fear of failure, could be one's intolerance for ambiguity and uncertainty with trying something new, right? Those are examples of constraints. And so in this definition, I'm presenting the challenge and the view of creativity as one as being intrapersonal. And so that lends itself as a challenge for us to really think about what are some things that get in the way of our own creative thinking and on our own entrepreneurial thinking and creativity, and look for ways to overcome any forces that may get in the way. So what is a creative entrepreneur? Creative entrepreneurs habitually do the following, and these are not easy. So they look for ways to see problems that other people don't. They take risks that other people are afraid to take. They have courage to defy the crowd and to stand up for their own beliefs, and they seek to overcome obstacles and challenges to their views that other people give into. Yes, this is not easy, and that's why at the top right, I emphasize that this is my favorite one of my favorite definitions of creativity, because it suggests that we need to take an interpersonal view, right, to overcome those forces that may make this difficult for us to materialize. There's another definition of creativity that I like, and this was developed, of course, by a mathematician because she formulated a mathematical formula here. And so creativity is equal to a function of an attitude. So that attitude could be one's willingness to have that plan B or plan C, one's openness, one's willingness to take risk and experiment, one's willingness to be more tolerant of uncertainty and ambiguity. And that function of one's mindset, entrepreneurial mindset and attitude, is super helpful for us to create new knowledge, where you see represented by that K. It's also that function of an attitude that allows us to tap into our work experiences and our training to spark new ideas or imagination. But creative thinking also involves taking those new ideas and turning them into very workable solutions. Now, the reason why I bring this to your attention is that this K, that stands for knowledge, has a double-edged sword to it, meaning you need your training, you need your experiences to spark new ideas. However, the other side of that sword is that it also can trap us. Our own training and our experiences can trap us into subscribing to certain assumptions. And so a creative person or the creative entrepreneur, what that person does is presses up against assumptions. It questions assumptions. And I'm presenting to you here, and this is my sharing a story with you, that one time you were working with NASA, and the scientist in this ideas lab that we are facilitating is a group that was charged with the task, were given the task to determine life as they do not know it, That means to say life outside of planet Earth. So we brought in this chemist who is our provocateur. And the provocateur is brought into these ideas lab to provoke people's thinking. So this provocateur is not responsible, nor that person has the responsibility to try to convince the scientist of his or her or their point of view. And the scientist, of course, doesn't have to accept the provocation. The point is about getting the scientist to engage in conversation. So I remember what his provocation, and I'm going to, and I'll just paraphrase what you see here as a quote. And what he said in summary was to the scientist that we as a human race tend to be an arrogant race. What makes you think that life outside of our planet is carbon-based? Because if you think all life outside of our planet is carbon-based, you may miss the opportunity to detect life because you're looking for carbon, and there's this other entity or structure that comprises life. And so this example is that us as entrepreneurs, we need to question our assumptions as a creative entrepreneur, as a creative person. And so this provocateur was engaging in one of these provocations. So we coached this person to, not this person here, the one previous, to take, for example, this person was able to, he used an escape provocation, which is to negate a fact or a statement taken for granted. So life as being carbon-based was a fact that because of their training, the scientist's training and experience is that carbon life is carbon-based. But provocateurs can also do a reversal, taking the opposite of a fact or statement, and then doing the opposite of it as a way of questioning assumption and pressing up against those assumptions that come with our training experiences. They can also take something and exaggerate it either quantitatively or qualitatively, or increase or decrease the number. That's another way of provoking or showcasing provocation. Distortion could be taking your entrepreneurial process or your manufacturing process, looking at a sequence and see if you change the sequence of it or distort it, what kind of ideas does that generate? And again, the purpose is really to get us away from that double-edged sword where you need knowledge, but sometimes for new thinking as entrepreneurs, we can get trapped or fixed with our own assumptions. And so provocation is needed. Now, Dr. Ravi had mentioned how it's really important to have that plan B, right? Or that plan C. And so I like this particular, where you see the scholar here, Matthews, talks about the different distinctions of innovation and entrepreneurship. He says here, innovation is a process involving generating and implementing effective new ideas. And entrepreneurship is a psychological property of people which makes them capable to a greater or lesser degree of contributing to this process. I found that fascinating because when you look at your own entrepreneurial process or actually the innovation process, and I just took one from the literature, and you see here a process depicted in this illustration. In any of these steps of this process, you can be confronted with a force that gets in your way or a group's way or the startup's way to actually advance in this process. So each of those that I just showed you are forces that create tension. And so as entrepreneurs, we need to engage our creative thinking so we can overcome those forces or those bottlenecks that can present themselves at any time in any of these steps of this particular innovation process. And so that can involve, again, new thinking that presses against that presses up against one's assumption. It could be leading to a plan B, a plan C, or plan D. And so I highlighted the word propensity because it's that sustained effort to come up with new thinking as entrepreneurs to overcome any forces that get in the way. And a lot of these forces are very much people related. A lot of it is psychological in dealing with people and stakeholders that have an influence and at stake at each of these in each of these steps. Let me move to the process or the entrepreneurial process that leads into new products. At the college at the university where I was an academic and I did research, not only that we helped in developing the technique brainstorming, but also the person who developed that technique also helped evolve the process that you see here. And so one of the things I want to bring to your attention here in this process is that entrepreneurs, when you think about their thinking and their creative thinking, it's not just about coming up with new products and services. That imagination for entrepreneurs also involves to what extent you understand the context, to what extent you can reframe, redefine the challenge or the problem. In the previous presentation with Dr. Ravi, he has encouraged you to go out to the organizations, embed yourself in the organization, talk to customers, talk to the stakeholders to get as much information as possible. So imagination is also important for reframing, redefining, and bringing much more clarity to a situation before jumping prematurely to a solution. Of course, imagination is important for the generation of many options. Sometimes people tend to just stay with just a few ideas, and those ideas, those few, may be common, may be familiar. But when you push for more, then that leads into more novel and then even more sophisticated ideas. And so that's an important aspect of the creative process. For developing, imagination also requires one to take ideas and turn them into a much more workable solution, much more grounded. And for implementation, imagination is also required for overcoming any forces that get in the way of getting the context or the conditions to be favorable for the adoption or the implementation of those workable solutions. So you can see that in this process, you can see different ways in which one can exercise creative thinking. Now, the diamond shape is an important figure in our field because it involves the separation of two types of thinking. That is to say, the thinking that involves the generation of many, many options, and then the thinking that involves the screening, selecting, development of those options. And in our field, we highly recommend that you separate those two lines of thinking. So when you're thinking up with options, you delay it. I'm not saying eliminate it. You delay it until you have many options, because in having many options, it is very empowering when you have many options from which you can choose. There are guidelines to help in our thinking. So you as entrepreneurial leaders, what you can do when you are facilitating meetings in small groups is to consider these guidelines as interventions to help your group engage in more entrepreneurial thinking and more creative thinking. So if you were to think about your experience with meetings where you were asked to give ideas, I would bet that many of you have experienced the following, where you were asked to give ideas, and once you give it, criticism immediately follows. And I bet that you also had your colleagues at that meeting experience something similar. So as a way, and when that gets experienced, well, you know what the psychological effects of what happens when that occurs. And so the first intervention is to ask people to delay judgment. This guideline is not asking to eliminate judgment. It's just saying delay it until you can be empowered with many, many, many options from which you can choose. Now think about that experience again that you had in that meeting, that ideation meeting. I would suspect that if there's a lot of judgment, what you produce in that meeting is one that comprises very few ideas. So instead of having many, you have very few. And so the second intervention as curators or as facilitators of meetings is to give people a quota, a very ambitious quota that they can shoot for so they can have many more options. I also will bet that in that experience that you had, the negative experience, that when you look at the kind of ideas that people generated, those ideas were probably ideas that were familiar, common ones. Oh, we've seen these ideas already. And I bet that that's frustrating when you go from one meeting to another and the ideas that are generated are common ones. We've seen this already, same old, same old. So this third intervention is gives people the permission to even present radical ideas, wild ideas, with the understanding that later we'll take those radical ideas and we will transform them and turn them into much more workable solution. Those radical ideas and those wild ideas are a great foundation to turn and spark workable solutions. Now, go back to your experiences in that meeting, and I would bet that if judgment is not delayed, that you only get few ideas and that those ideas are common, there's a lot of frustration in that people do not listen to each other, especially when there's a lot of judgment. So if I were to ask people, tell me what the listening is like, people will tell me that the listening is poor because you have people that have been affected by the criticism and sustained over time. You can well imagine that people are not going to embrace hearing other people's idea. And so this last intervention comprises listening to the ideas that people share and then asking people to build on the ideas that you hear from others. That is to say, use the ideas that others share as a way of sparking new ideas from your standpoint, from your vantage point. And so these are very simple guidelines that are used in every step of this creative problem solving process. And so you as entrepreneurs need to examine your own process, your own creative process in your entrepreneurial activity, and examine which ones seem to come natural to you and which ones might be a little bit challenged, and ones you need to be self-aware and to act upon that self-awareness. And I'm going to share with you just very few tools that we use in each of these steps of this process. So let me just, for that clarify step, let me just share some research findings. And so what you see here in these three research studies with regard to the step in this creative problem solving process, which is called clarifying. Again, this is about reframing, redefining, trying to get as much information as possible to understand the situation and to assess the situation. What these researchers found, that those individuals that dedicated a lot more time in this step, right, actually produced really great results. You see here in the first one that in having people identify the problem, reframing it was the best predictor of creative accomplishments. This scholar here, or these scholars here, found that problem construction, again, this is about reframing, redefining, and bringing clarity to a challenge, that ability was associated with both quality and originality of solutions to a variety of real-world problems, including entrepreneurs that have gone on to launch their businesses. These scholars here found that problem identification and construction ability was predictive of solution quality and originality across two different kinds of real-world problems. And so the lesson here is don't skip over this particular step of your process. Put in as much effort as you can. And you have to be patient, especially for those individuals that like to just leap to a solution and then to implement, right? Because that comes out of a cost if you that comes at a cost, and there's some consequences if you prematurely jump to a solution and then to implement it. So that's something to consider for that particular step, is that, and I just bring to you these three research findings. Now let me move into a technique in the ideate step. It's one of my favorite tools. It's called forced connections. So I need to give you a little context behind this. Now, I know this has happened to all of us. For example, where we are working on a problem or a challenge, and you don't quite get the solution that was satisfactory. And so that becomes sort of like an annoyance or a nag because you couldn't get that one solution that you needed for this pressing problem. And so then you decide, all right, I'm going to end my day and I'm going to go home. And then it happens while you're driving home in your car, or it could happen when you're in the shower. It could be when you're walking your dog. It could be an activity where you're just about ready to go. I'm sorry, when you're ready to go to bed, or you just got up from a nap. And then all of a sudden, when you least expect it, you get this aha moment, right? There's an explanation for that. In the cognitive science and the neuroscientific study of creativity, what they found is that the brain doesn't like that ambiguity, right, that occurred from one's inability in that moment to find that solution, right, for a particular problem. And so in this associative process, what it does, and let me add that when you're in the shower or in the car, what have you, what's in common with when you have that aha moment is a certain relaxed state. And that relaxed state is conducive to igniting an associative process in the brain that starts to go through its working memories and making connections among disassociated elements of what's in your memory. And so that happens at the subconscious level. So you're not even aware of it, but it's in those conditions where you feel relaxed. Well, that process will take place because it wants to resolve what you were unable to resolve earlier. And so that happens naturally when you have those aha moments. We have found in our field that we can do that deliberately. And so that leads me to this tool called forced connections. And how it works is, for example, I choose a photograph, for example, that is completely disassociated to a challenge that people are working on. It could be a group or it could be a person. And I kind of warm them up first. I'll say, all right, tell me what you see in this photograph. And then I'm writing down on a piece of paper what they see. I tell them, what else do you see? Then I ask, what does that remind you of? Then I write down their responses. Then I ask, what does that make you feel? What else does it make you feel? And so what I'm doing is really priming the brain to comb through its working memory as it relates to this picture. And then after I warm them up, after the brain has gone through its working memory, I ask this question. When you look at this photograph, what ideas do you get for your solving your challenge? So I tell people to be patient with themselves in answering that question and just let the brain work its magic as it tries to resolve this challenge and sort of like this disconnect that I deliberately force upon them by connecting something that has nothing to do with their challenge. And then all of a sudden, you see the connections happen. And I do emphasize to people, just be patient with yourself. The key here, if you're going to try this tool, is to make sure you select something that is completely disassociated. So for example, I was working one day with folks from Disney World, and they happened to bring a photograph of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And they were looking to create new products, and it didn't work. And they didn't work because it was too closely associated to the product and didn't create that sort of challenge, that nag that I wanted to create from something that's disassociated. And so when I gave them feedback, when they tried the technique, I told them, go with something that's so disassociated and then give this question another go. Another tool as I move into the developer step of this creative problem solving process is a way of affirmatively judging and evaluating your ideas. And this tool is designed not only to affirmatively judge your ideas, but also to expand what I call the opportunities, to really give your ideas some breathing room. So before you immediately judge the ideas, ask yourself, at minimum, what are the 3 pluses and the advantages of your product idea or your service idea? Then go with potentials. Imagine that this service or this product or this idea already exists, that's already in existence now, what opportunities can come from that? And this is, again, engaging in this entrepreneurial thinking. Now, here's a really important piece, that whatever your concerns are, we ask when we are introducing this tool to convert your concerns into open-ended questions. So instead of saying this costs too much, look at the semantics that we bring into this, because language informs and shapes one's thinking and also informs decision making. So instead of saying it costs too much, transform it or convert it into an open-ended question. So say, how might we make it affordable? By asking open-ended questions, you're now inviting a response or several responses to those concerns. And you keep generating options and ideas until you feel like you have addressed those concerns, which leads to the overcoming of the concern. So you would prioritize which of these open-ended questions, each one representing the concerns, is urgent, and start with that one first. And if that doesn't resolve the other concerns, and you keep going to the next, you go to the next open-ended question until you come up with as many ideas as possible to overcome concerns. One of the lessons here that's important, you might have heard the story regarding Federal Express. This came from a business course where one of the students were asked to come up with a business concept, and one of the students had shared this idea of sending mail overnight to its destination, and the professor was very critical and actually gave feedback to the effect that this is an impossible feat. And so, but if that professor had taken the approach that I'm sharing with you here, then you could have seen that this idea could have flourished much earlier. Thank goodness that those students had so much faith in their idea and actually was able to launch Federal Express. And now you know this now it's history. That story is now into the history books. And so I challenge you to not prematurely judge your ideas, but do it in such affirmative way using this particular tool that we call PPCO. Let me go to the product or results. There is a scholar, he's an engineer, he's a professor of engineering at a university in Australia, and he developed an instrument or questionnaire that examines the functional creativity of products and services. And so some of these here are self-explanatory. Others, of course, need a little bit more elaboration. I'm not going to get into the elaboration. I would invite you that when you have some time, just search for measuring creativity for innovation management, or you can search for creative solution diagnosis scale, and then you can use David Cropley as another qualifier when you search this. And the article you can download for free. But what I do when I work with entrepreneurs or with organizations, I have them evaluate their products and their services using these set of criteria as you see them organized in these 5 buckets. So I have them engage in conversation around the relevance and effectiveness of their product or services. I also have them engage in describing the problematization of their product or services. To what extent does it help with diagnosing the solution or prognosis, etc. And I move down each of these columns. The point is to have them have folks be much more deliberate in evaluating their products and services. And then where they believe, a certain criteria is low, I will have them engage in some new thinking to actually increase their evaluation of a certain criterion of their product or services. Or they might say that a certain criterion is very important and they want to continue growing it or augmenting it. That's another pathway for a conversation. Another thing I want you to think about as you start to grow your business or you launch, and I said this to you just a moment ago, that innovation doesn't just happen and entrepreneurship doesn't happen just in the offering. It doesn't just happen in the product's performance or in the product system or the service. You have to look much broader than that. That is a way, when you're growing your business, also look at entrepreneurship and innovation in your processes. Also in how your business model and the finances and the networking of how you join forces with other companies for mutual benefit, for example. Also look at your delivery, your channels, your brand, your customer experiences. So that's going to be really important in terms of entrepreneurship, to broaden how you think about innovation within your business and your organization. Let me move on to this last step of this creative problem-solving process. And I invite you to consider the context, because I think the context can either help or hinder. So when you're introducing the product or service into a marketplace or even ideas within an organization, context can help or hinder. I do an activity where I have people read out loud and in unison the words from left to right. So just imagine them, people saying green, red, blue, green, blue, yellow, orange, red, black, blue, red. And then I pace them by clapping my hands. So I start off slow and then I move fast. But then I do something where I introduce change. I says, all right, what I want you to do is this time around, I want you to not read me the words, but actually say the colors. And I'm going to pace you, and I want you to start off slow, and I want you to finish fast. By the time you get into the middle, line or the last. So people start off with blue, green, yellow, blue, red, red, yeah. And then by the time it's third or fourth, and I'm sure as you're doing this in your mind, you got stuck somewhere in this area or maybe here. The point I'm trying to share with folks is that when you introduce new ideas, whether it's in the organization or even products into the marketplace, take in consideration the context, because what happens is that there's a psychological basis that comes from learning anxiety. So if someone says to me, John, I want you to try, and I'm a professor and I teach, I want you to try this virtual platform to teach class. That can prompt learning anxiety for me, because you're asking me to let go of something that's most familiar to me and to try something new. And that learning anxiety can come by way of either fearing that a temporary incompetence in front of my students. It could be a fear of punishment for showcasing or looking like I'm incompetent. It could be my fear of loss among my colleagues in terms of personal identity, or I can get rejected, whether the fear is true or not, by my group or my department, because I'm struggling with this new product, new service, or with this new platform. And so that's very important to consider as entrepreneurs or leaders in terms of curating entrepreneurial thinking and activity within your companies, is to take this in consideration, that when you are introducing something new, it is like having people go through a mourning process, because it's the loss of something that is important to folks and for people that they've done for many years. And now you're replacing that with something new. And that can also happen with products and services. So when someone tries to pitch or to sell me a different learning system, management system to teach, that could be a struggle if someone's not there to help me with that learning anxiety. But that unfortunately, that doesn't get discussed in organizations. It remains as an undiscussable. So you as curators, as entrepreneurial leaders, need to help people go through this performance curve, that when you introduce something new, people will go through endings. The learning anxiety might go up. It might lead to some chaos, shock, or denial. And people's reactions to those endings vary. Then as they start to go through that performance curve, right, there's some curiosity. Sometimes that uncertainty can be painful. You see some highs and lows, and you see some instability. So you as leaders need to work with them psychologically to move through that curve. So ultimately they start to even experience some hope and optimism because they see some improvement in the application of a new idea, a new product and service. And so part of that involves demonstrating what you see here for each of these stages of this transition model, which is really about managing, you as leaders, managing the emotional side of change that comes with introducing something new. So whether you're introducing something new within your own company or taking consideration how your product and services may be received by your clients, by your constituents, or by your stakeholders. I've said a lot with this presentation, and so I ended here with thanking you for taking consideration this system's view of entrepreneurial activity and creativity as you move forward. So thank you so much for your time and your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor John Cabra. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much once again, and taking the time to talk to our young entrepreneurs. Thanks a lot once again. And what do you think? Do we need to have a question and answer session? Very few minutes.
I'm more than willing.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir. If you have questions, you can ask now. Quickly, you can ask.
That's okay. I might have given folks a lot to think about.
Absolutely, yes. Actually, it's an amazing presentation. You focused on the psychological perspectives of creativity and the innovations and entrepreneurship. That's phenomenal, and based on the research findings and all, it's actually a absolute knowledge, based on research findings. And I'm pretty sure it's very, very useful for the Sri Lankan young entrepreneurs. Thank you so much once again, Professor John Cabra. Actually, we should be really, really grateful to you, because at the expense of your sleep, you were kind enough. To make the presentation, because even though it's here late in the evening for you, it's actually very early in the morning. It's actually the sleeping time. And thanks a lot. Thank you so much for your kindness.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Knowledge. Thanks a lot.
Best wish.
Yeah. So, with that session from Professor John F. Cabra, so we're gonna conclude today's session. I'm pretty sure you all got some knowledge in terms of, we covered a lot of perspectives today, starting from some motivational perspectives, and then theoretical perspectives, all the way to the practical perspectives. Our objective is basically to cover all the main areas in terms of development of startups. And that is, I'm pretty sure you got the necessary knowledge and skills for your startup. So when it comes to tomorrow's program, your participation is very much appreciated. So you all need to be here tomorrow at around 7:45. So you need to be here, because we're gonna start at 8 to 9, and then until the certificates. Those who complete the 2 days will definitely get the certificate. And also, in order to conclude the today's sessions, and I think it's better if we can get a group picture or something like that, because then we can create, very good report. So you all can come forward. So Dilip, how are we gonna get the group picture? If you could kind enough to come forward, we can use the stage, floor, and whatever the space available. It's a big group photo that we're gonna take. So you also can join as the resource persons. I will join. No, students are